All right, Kirk, I am on week 4 of training, like training like you would need to train to be good at a sport.
Yeah.
Rather than just dad bod training. And last week was the turning point where I've talked about this on here before. Since COVID, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything like that, which is what everyone would say. But since COVID, I have an insane immune system response in terms of, or at least a nervous system response to stimulus. If I give my body a new stimulus that it's not used to, my body receives all like input stimulus from workouts right now as if they're enormous workouts. So I get this huge inflammation response to upping my training. And I've talked about this every time since COVID that I've restarted a training block. I'm just refreshing for any new listeners, but it'll feel like I ran a mountain ultra every day for my first week of starting back up training. Like 40-minute trail run. The next day, I think I have arthritis in my knees and ankles, that kind of thing. Like it's bizarre.
So when you say inflammation, you mean pain. You're experiencing like DOMS or pain localized after an effort. What about like fatigue or lethargy, like systemic, body, mind, any of that? Just you're physically beat up?
No.
So,
and it's only in like the hinge joint areas, ankles, knees, little bit of hip. That's it.
Do you ever wonder if? I think there's a lot to that. By the way, you hear this a good bit, so I don't think you're a conspiracy theorist or you're crazy. But I'm just going to pose an alternative viewpoint for you. How much do you think surgeries being non-impact for so long, then returning to old training demands and then age? You're 37 now, I think, right?
37.
So do you think any of those, like maybe it's a compounding interest thing? Like, what do you think about those two pieces?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, this is what happens when you age and you've taken damage in your life. And I'm not saying it's COVID's fault. I'm not saying it's a vaccine's fault. All I know is that my last knee surgery was, 2 years prior to COVID. Mm-hmm. So I'd already done my rehab. I had already done an ultra build, competed in the ultra.
To reframe.
And recovered.
Brakken got COVID once, like COVID 2020. You got it in like 2021 or 2022. So you're saying, I think people think of COVID as like an era, and you're speaking specifically when you got it. So your last surgery was like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. Not like in 2018.
True, that was a hernia surgery.
Oh, that's right. That was a hernia surgery.
Yeah.
Okay. Continue.
My 2 knee surgeries were done a year and a half to 2 years prior to my first time getting COVID.
Right.
So contracting the coronavirus. I had already gone through a full rehab and raced an ultra and a couple other races. So yes, the surgeries add up. Scar tissue adds up. Arthritis is one of the main byproducts of having a meniscectomy. But I had gone through this for a few years, and then coming out of COVID, building back up right then is when it started. Like that first day, there's a huge inflammation response from my body. Anyways, I don't want to actually get too far down to that. That's not the point of all this. But it's something I've struggled with. I basically can't get out of shape now because when I do get out of shape or out of even just practice, if I add something back in, it's like I ran a mountain ultra, no matter what that thing was. It's really, really bizarre. But it only lasts for a little bit. 2 to 4 weeks generally is what it lasts. Well, last week was the week it changed. The week before, I had a conversation with my dad that if this doesn't go away soon, I may have to stop doing some of these activities. And then 4 days later, I was fine. I went out and I did a leg builder in the morning. So it was row intervals, lunges, and incline. And then in the evening, or a couple hours later, I went and did 60 minutes of trail and hill work. And the next day I was like, it was appropriate for what I had done. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel like I had just destroyed myself. So I got an hour 45 of work in. It was just like moderately sore the next day. And so I just moved on with life. But Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, because of the way life stacked up and the way time and opportunities presented themselves to me, I did quality work of some sort Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And now I'm sitting here Thursday, just like a zombie again.
It smacked you.
But an appropriate zombie where everything hurts because it should, not because there's some weird response.
So are you officially saying that you might be back? Is that what you're really doing, is unveiling
In
the
this
new Brakken?
day and age, in this moment, in this snapshot of time, I am back and healthy and appropriately sore. But I bring all this up, Kirk, to talk about how sore I am today.
Okay.
I'm over the bad, weird inflammation soreness, but I have a crazy amount of soreness because I did a threshold interval workout followed by a 2K row time trial and a 2-mile stand-up paddleboard time trial. And then they released one of the first events of the CrossFit Games, which is going to be 1,000 step-ups on a 20-inch box with 45 pounds on your back. And I was really intrigued by it, so I added that on to that day. And so I did 1,000 step-ups, and I am very sore today. But I bet you won't guess what is destroyed from 1,000 step-ups with 45 pounds.
Your traps.
Nope. I mean, a little, but no. The thing that's destroyed.
Your core. Your lower back.
Nope. Tired. Not destroyed. Nope.
Well, your earlobes. I don't know what.
The very, very top, almost behind my knee of my calves.
I could see that from that
From
push off from the
descending off the
other.
box.
Sure. You know, I did.
It's not the bottom where you would get if you pushed off tight. It's not the bottom of the calf. It's the very top. It's very strange. I'm almost never sore in this spot.
I did 500 pull-ups for time a few years ago. I think this is after we started the podcast, and my strategy was I did 5 pull-ups every 30 seconds for 49 minutes and 20-some seconds. And there was a little kipping at the end, but anyways, I pulled it off. It was 30, like if it took me 10 seconds to do the pull-ups, I had 20 seconds rest, and I had to go again. I was very strong, very fit. I couldn't do that right now, I don't think. Anyways, I've never been more sore in my life after that effort. And it was 2 places. And it was 2 places that you wouldn't expect. Yes, I was sore in my lats and, of course, my bicep and that hinge between my forearm and bicep. But guess the 2 places that were unbearably sore.
You told me this maybe on a podcast or maybe not, maybe in person a couple of years ago, and I'm forgetting. But if I'm trying to think outside the box, what would be really sore on me would be like intercostals,
Okay.
I think. And maybe neck.
Neck. The old neck strain, reaching the chin to get up to the bar.
Just so many reps.
I'm an advocate of core work, and I was hitting core work heavy at the time, and my abs have never been that sore to date. My upper abs have never felt like that. They were sore for like a week and a half, to the point it was almost detrimental for a few days. My core, which I didn't know I needed in my pull-ups until I did 500 of them. And then the head of my triceps where they insert into my elbow must have been from fully extending so much on the bottom, making sure I was locked out, that my triceps were cranked. I mean, to the point where like I couldn't straighten my arms or move, like bend them, but it wasn't because of my bicep hinge. It was because of that last like inch or two of my tricep insertion in my elbow. So you don't really know what's being used in some of these things that aren't the main focal point, because I would not have predicted that either. So all of that to say is I'm not that surprised in where you're sore.
And it was interesting because afterwards I didn't feel bad. It wasn't a cardiovascular challenge. That wasn't the limiter. I don't think my heart rate got above like 140 throughout this, because you have to get both feet up at the top and down at the bottom. And so you're not like springing or jumping. You get up, lock out, go back down.
Yeah.
So it wasn't fast, and my quads didn't give out. It was just like a work rate thing. I tried every 333, I did a different strategy, building from slow to fast, because I didn't want to blow up, but I wanted to see what could a top CrossFitter maybe do at something like this. But I didn't get done thinking I was trash. But Rich Ryan was like, I'm curious to hear how tired you are or hurt from getting down off the box each time. It's like, that's not the thing. And it turned out that was the thing. I hate to give him credit, but he was right. It was like that little glimpse of eccentric loading, getting down off the box, taking it, like catching at your toe and then descending down to heel touching with 45 pounds on your back 1,000 times. That's what got me.
I feel like the last 3 days you just like threw shit at the wall and see what's stuck. Like a
It was a celebration of feeling good.
Who does a 2K stand-up paddleboard time trial? Like what vacuum are
2
you?
mile.
2 mile. What vacuum are you ever gonna compare that to again, and why? And we're gonna teach
Last year.
We're going to teach you guys something today. We're going to make sure we stop this shortly, but tell me your rationale here.
There's a method to it all, Kirk.
Oh.
The intervals happened because they needed to happen.
Well, that I understand.
That was the workout. The next day, the 2K time trial happened, and I actually posted about this because I bailed on a run.
Yeah.
Because the trails were so trashed.
Wasn't it a photo of you sitting on the rower like Gollum, all like hunched over? Precious.
On the ground, just like sweating my life away. Just
That's what it was.
And I let the day get away from me. I fell asleep putting the kids down, and I woke up at 10:20. I was like, I don't want to do anything. It's like, what would be the worst thing right now that's short, that I could just get something done? I was like, 2K row. So I made myself do a 2K row. So that was unplanned, but it just like needed to be done mentally to prove to myself that I am in the middle of a training block. But then the next day it was our delayed 4th of July family get together at my aunt's lake house. And it is 2 miles on the head around the perimeter of their lake. And last year I tried to break their kayak record on a stand-up paddleboard. And so this year I wanted to see how my fitness compared to last year. So I cranked on that. So it was random, but there was a reason it happened.
Did you wear a heart rate monitor for that?
No, I didn't bring one.
Okay.
I wasn't planning on doing it. And then I remembered when I was there. Oh, yeah.
There's like people we make fun of, like not even behind closed doors. And we haven't done it in a while, but like the people who like are the king or queen of like random fitness competitions and things, like it's like, of course, like you're going to go do the random 1,000 step ups for time because it's random and 6 people are going to do it and you're going to be the champion. I feel like that was your week. You're just like random stuff champion of your household.
The paddleboard, yes.
Yeah.
The rower, no. I was happy with my row, but it is not an impressive row time for people who are good at rowing.
Yeah.
And then the 1,000 step-ups, unfortunately, the entire CrossFit Games is going to do it.
Right.
I'm going to have to redo this in like 2 weeks to get an actual better score.
Yeah, that'll be fun to watch. You brought up something that I had to...
So I went 46 and a half minutes on the step-ups.
Okay.
If you watch the games, see how many people beat that. And I think I could go 44 to 45 if I sent it.
What do you think's worse, that or...
But interesting, about the same time
Yeah.
as your pull-ups.
You think that or... Well, I did 500, not 1,000. Do you think that's worse, or I've done the 500 burpees for time challenge situation?
Oh, burpees way worse. This wasn't bad. It wasn't fun,
Guess which one's quicker, though?
but it wasn't miserable.
Burpees are notably quicker.
Are they?
I think I was 31 minutes, low 30s. Mm-hmm.
That sounds way worse.
But it's shorter.
Quicker sounds worse than grinding it out.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, Facebook.
The hardest part about this was sweat management and keeping count.
Imagine if they made you farmers hold 2 20-pound dumbbells, how that would end up turning out eventually.
That would change things.
Mm-hmm. That would be naughty. Okay, what was I going to say? Let's stop talking about you. Let's talk about two athletes that I'm working with.
Before we do,
Oh God.
is this not the most stereotypical thing ever, though, Kirk?
What?
To start feeling good and fit and just start doing stupid random things to celebrate the fact that you feel good?
Yeah.
Like this is the pattern people have. Hey, I feel great. I'll do whatever I want. Next week, oh, I'm laid up again.
Yeah.
This is stereotypical.
And that actually aligns with what I was going to transition to is you brought up about like high inflammation and feeling super sore, like your body taking structural damage or an inflammatory response, which presents itself as pain. And I've had two people, somebody will hire you to be their coach, which is what we do. And they're ready for more and they're ready for a bump up. And, I had this one person start and I said, you're not doing enough. Like plain and simple, you're not doing enough. Not even close to enough. You want to get faster at the 5K and you're running 400 meter repeats every week and running 14 miles a week total. Like if you really care, we need to fix some things. And so we fixed some things. And he's, starting week 2. I've had like 2 people recently and he is trashed. And he is just like, I have nothing. Mm-hmm. I am empty. He's healthy, but he's trashed. And he's also, new enough to this where like you kind of live and die by every workout, right? Like, oh, I suck today. I'm never going to be good. And so you have one bad one early in your running career and you're like, I'm never going to be better. I suck. Or you have a good one. Now you think this is suddenly going to be every day, only to go out 2 days later and bomb your next quality workout and then be all back over, The curve is not smoothened. It's like you're going from high to low and low to high. And I just have a feeling that like when you're ramping up, if you're taking your running seriously, the idea is to knock you down so that you callous up to the efforts and come back and build stronger. And I think there's a lot of people that go through what you're saying, and it just reminded me of 2 athletes I'm working with in particular who I just got texts or I just got off calls with saying like, I'm getting no better. I'm like, well, it's been 2 weeks and the stimulus is starting to catch up with you. The novelty is wearing off and you will acclimate. Mm-hmm. And so I've just been hearing a lot of that. And I think people do experience that if you are stepping up your training game, for one of like the first time in your life or consistently. And so I don't think you're alone there is all I'm saying. And when you are ramping up intensity combined with more volume than you've done recently, like sometimes your hip hurts out of nowhere and you don't even know why. Sometimes your calves are extra sore to the point where like you don't know if you should run today. And you don't need to make sense of it all. You don't need to make any sense of it. You just need to like lay back in your chair, chill out for a minute, just like observe, see what happens, kick the rock one further day down the road, and then come back, and you realize everything's going to be fine 90% of the time. And so that's just like a little PSA because I had to talk somebody off the ledge last week about this. So I don't know. It reminded me of that, what you said.
Yeah. We've made a statement along the lines of if you just did blank for like 9 weeks or 9 months or a year, how much of a monster would you be? And we're always like, yeah, like if you just did a huge interval session every week for a year, like what would you be like? Or if you did hill work every single week, or if you prioritized downhill skill work every week for 6 months, like what would your game be like when you came back? Or if you did, whatever it was. And we can always see, like, if you give a big enough body of time, at the end, you would be a changed, improved version. But we can't carry that through the whole time with blinders on because we feel each step of the route. We can see that the destination would for sure be worth it, but when you're only a quarter of the way through and you feel terrible and worse, you don't have that outside confidence of, if you just did that for another like 10 weeks, you're going to be a monster. Yep. You can't even fathom 10 weeks when week 2 is so bad.
Yep. And then you walk out the door in week 3 and you didn't get enough sleep and this is the last effing thing I want to do. And you get 10 minutes into your run and you're floating magically. When just 7 days earlier, you felt like the biggest piece of dog crap and you wondered if you were going to suck the rest of your life. And then on a day where it makes no sense, you partied all weekend or something, you got no sleep, you felt like trash for the whole week prior. Then your shoes go on and it's magic. And you're like, where did that come from? And you're trying to make sense of it. Well, your body finally went through its processes, and here you are now better for it. It's not as obvious as people would like to think, and it's not as linear as new runners believe it should be. It's a lot of going backwards to go forwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
Questions that need answering? Is that what we're doing?
Questions that need answering.
What kind of questions need answering today, Brakken? What do the people need to know today?
I'm interested to hear what the theme is.
All right.
Because even though we've just talked about heat several times, heat has come up on every athlete call I've done in the last month. Everyone is dealing with it.
And we have our first major heat wave here in the north. I mean, true, coming like right now. I think we're in the 90s for us with whatever 80% humidity. I think you guys probably have that too. Hey,
we're a little cooler. We're behind you by a bit here. We were hot, and now we've had our first dip. We're 74 right now, and I feel guilty for it. I just got off a conversation with one woman. They've got up to 104, and I got messages today from one person saying that it's 106 Saturday, and the other person said it's going to be 109 Saturday. What should I do? Like, mine just dropped to 74. I don't know what to tell you. I live somewhere else currently because your state is trying to kill you.
Get on a plane. Yeah, it's 85 here right now. Yeah, that's one of those things where you legit might just have to set a 2:30 a.m. alarm and get out and finish while the sun's coming up if you want to have a productive session, if it matters to you, or you just suck it up, slow it down, and hopefully acclimate right at the crack of dawn. Get it done for that first 2 hours of the day.
Yep.
It's still going to be gross. I don't know what the theme
is. This is to me worth.
Yeah.
It's worth spending a couple $100 if finances allow it, of course. That's a flippant statement if you don't have a few $100 extra floating around. And get a window unit and put it in your garage or your gym. It's just worth it during this time.
Hot tips there, folks. That's a hot Brakken Kraker tip for you. Air conditioning.
Air conditioning. You heard it here first.
Mind. All right.
It's going to catch on.
I don't think so. It sounds dumb. All right. I am a Spartan podcast account. You know them over there?
Scott Knowles.
Hey, Scott. All right. Scott and I worked together for a bit there when he was getting ready for his first ultra or to smash his season of ultras. He was a hard worker. Scott, some Q&A questions. I've been injured since Fayetteville Ultra. Haven't been able to run. An adductor issue, he says. I have been cross-training with walking and stair climbing, looking like 8+ weeks of no running. I typically run 7 to 8 hours a week, 2 of those hours being a long run. My question is, what do you think my volume should be when I can start running again? What do y'all think is harder running I don't know how this is in conjunction. I'm sorry. I'm going to read it anyways. What do y'all think is harder, running 1 mile up and 1 mile down a hill, or 4 by a quarter mile up and a quarter mile down? Both scenarios accumulate same amount of distance and gain, same grade. So I think he wants us to unpack 2 things there.
2 different questions.
I think they're separate questions.
Yes.
Let's start with 1. Returning to running. What do you think my volume should be when I can start running again? The age-old question.
My views on this they have evolved over time. I used to go right to what percentage of what you were doing should we be doing, but I looked at it as one chunk of running. And now my views have evolved to I care less about what you're going to accumulate throughout the day. I care more about what are you going to work duration-wise for at a time. So rather than saying I ran an hour a day, I'm going to start out with 25 minutes or 30 minutes, and I'm going to fill that time. To me, that sets you up for more danger than saying I'm going to do 30 to 60 seconds of work at a time today, and I'm going to stop when it feels appropriate. Now, I think there still could be a safe word in there, like we're stopping at 30 minutes, but it's work accumulation seems more dangerous to me than total volume, if that makes sense. Like, how long is your work bout? Because sometimes 12 minutes in, it just goes. It hurts. Where if you had done 12 by 1 minutes, you'd be fine. So I don't know if I'm answering that yet, but that's where I start.
Yeah, I understand the concept you're bringing up. I hate this question, if I'm being honest, because it's a question you can't ask and you can't afford. Scott, I hate this question. I don't know. The answer is I don't know. Are you kidding me? Your body is going to let us know, and the only answer is caution, caution, caution. It might be one run of 7 minutes your first week back. I don't know. But this is the one. It's not the time for the 10-week training plan and my big ramp up back into glory. This is the time to put your shoes on and go run a mile out your door. And then we'll sit on it for 2-3 days. Make sure there's no red flashing lights and warning signs. And then make your next move. And then make your next move. And whatever your next move is should be the most cautious move you can make. And if you can prove to yourself over 4 to 6 weeks, once you're able to return to running, that, hey, all systems are still a go, you can start to open the floodgates then, meaning maybe increase by 25% a week, like something like that. But those first 4 weeks back are so crucial. I don't know. There's no right answer. I cannot tell you. And the other thing that people forget when they come back, and I'm speaking from experience because my dumb butt has come back from injury too many times, not in recent years, knock on wood, is that not only has your adductor not taken work because it's been injured, your tendons and ligaments haven't taken impact. Your hamstring, your quads, all other parts of your body have to get back up to speed. And if you think you go back to some sort of volume, pretty soon you're going to end up with runner's knee or Achilles tendonitis, which you've never even dealt with in the past. But because of your anxiety to ramp up your volume is so high, you're going to end up with a different injury because your other parts of your body couldn't handle it. And so that's a PSA when coming back because everything didn't take impact, not just your adductor that was the original injury. I feel passionate about this. You can tell. I'm getting myself fired up for no reason.
Yeah, a little
That's what I want.
Fire coming through today. A fiery Kirk.
Yeah, that's what I want to say.
Well, and that's really why I like the interval approach. As much as I did not like the advent of the run-walk culture for prepping for a marathon, I really like that for coming off of an injury because who knows if 7 minutes or 10 minutes or 12 minutes or 20 is the point when your adductor flares back up. But you know it's not going to happen in 30 seconds. In theory. So do 30 seconds and stop and readjust and reset and do it again and stop and do it again and stop. And then you got to give it a day or two. But like, I think, we sound like we're yelling at Scott. We're not. We're talking to the running community at large here.
Yes, this is many experiences of many people over the years that I'm talking to, not Scott. Scott hasn't done anything yet, I believe. Yes. Continue.
No. But even just the way it's phrased is emblematic of how the issue of returning to running is addressed in the running community, which is my rehab's done, now my running starts. Like, no, your volume is unchanged. You have an injury. Your running volume shifts to non-impact cardio, and you keep doing that, and now you get to sample running back in. But your training, this camera
that is
gotta
a
stop
fancy camera you got there.
Yeah, but it recognizes hand signals. So I have to, if you do this, put your hand up, it blinks, and now if you move, it moves. But if you want it to stop, you got to tell it pause, and it blinks again, and you're good.
Well, the only people will know
but I speak with
the
my
people
hands
who
a lot.
watch on our YouTube channel.
But because I speak with my hands, it misinterprets things sometimes. So I will put them under my armpits like superstar, and I will proceed. When you return to running, you are dosing running back in. You are not a runner again. You're just an athlete training. You're doing your full training, and you sample in some running movement and activity, but you don't get back to running. It's just the percentage changes over time until you're back, and then you are back to running. But it's not just like day one of running begin. No. We're sampling running back in a little bit. And that's it. Like you said, try a mile. But you're right. That's not your main workout. Your main workout is your bike or your elliptical or whatever. You just happen to throw in a little bit of running at first.
I'm glad you made that point, and I 1,000,000,000% agree with that and the interval. 1,000 million. It's a lot. Also with the interval approach because it's a fail-safe. I had an athlete who's coming back from a foot injury, and I prescribed her a 3-mile tempo. One of her first big consistent workouts back. And you know what she proposed to me? She said, you know what? My foot is doing okay, but I'm nervous about 3 steady miles hard. Can I break that up into 3 by a mile with short rest? And I said, yes, and thank you for coming to me with that. I knew it wasn't because she was trying to skirt around hard work. It was let's see how we feel today and make a decision. I had a workout down for her. She said, I think it makes me nervous, and we pivoted. The classic example of even scaling it longer than that. She went from a 3-mile tempo to 3 by mile. and got great stimulus out of it and gained confidence without setting herself back. So, all that to say, I agree with you. Anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, just to, I guess, to wrap that piece up, is that a lot of injuries or maladies, they present themselves when the work is done.
Mm-hmm.
And so if the work is continuous, you don't know it until you're done. So you've done 40 or 60 minutes of damage before you finally get to check for the warning sign. Or if you're doing intervals, let's say you have a bone issue. Let's say leg, Kirk, lower leg. If you stand on that leg and lean into it or hop a little bit, you're going to know. If you're just jogging uphill on the treadmill, you may not know until you stand and lean on it a little bit. Okay, that feels really sound. Well, if you can lean on it every 30 seconds, you're never getting behind. If you go 40 minutes and then you're leaning against the counter when you're done, you're like, oh, shoot, I think I feel that ache again. It took 40 minutes before you got a chance to even check in on it. Mm-hmm. So oftentimes stopping, letting the blood die down a little bit, letting your body just like sink into resting for a second, it'll talk to you. And I think that's an important feedback loop that you need to have on coming back from injury.
So another good point. You're very smart. I also think waiting till the next, like half the time you don't even know what it did to you till you get out of bed and take your first steps the next morning. Sometimes it's just one of those things like your juices are flowing, as you would say, all day, and then you finally get deloaded and your skeletal system relaxes, and then things kind of revert to back to where they're going to be their most painful, and you wake up the next morning and be like, oh crap, it did that to my Achilles. Didn't know that. Wish I would have went less yesterday. There's also that like even more delayed effect, and that's why the decision of caution is so important for a lot of overuse injuries. It's how my body seems to respond.
And you know what, Kirk?
What?
Yeah, I agree with that. And you know what? That this is counterintuitive to many people, but the longer your goal distances are, the longer you can delay your running for. If you are a world-class 5K runner, you cannot get away with cross-training your way to the podium. You just can't. Parker Valby is one of the only people we've ever seen make it work. If you are a world-class ultra runner, you can get ultra durable and fit in the weight room, on the bike, on the incline trainer, and then you add in running later because it's such a reduced version of running that the efficiency can come back pretty quickly, and you can build so much of the durability needed. And in the longer races, the durability is what matters, and Scott does long races.
Yep.
So there is no fire lit under him to have to get back out on the run early, because it's not like you have to be in pristine stride shape to win an ultra. You can't win a mile if your stride's off.
If I were Scott,
You can win an ultra by walking half of it.
If I were Scott, I'd be doing high volume strength work, working hard, and that Stairmaster is one of your best buddies. And he said he's walking, probably incline hiking. So you're right, especially with the long stuff. I mean, you're not going to be your best, but you're going to be able to access a larger percentage of it than you would mile efficiency or something like that. His second question, let's move ourselves on. It was, what do y'all think is harder, running 1 mile up and 1 mile down a hill, or 4 by a quarter up and a quarter down? In this, it's, teaching to the test, I would say, actually, probably more than anything. If you had the old Midwest mountain race, which happens at a ski hill usually, or undulating terrain, where a quarter mile up is as long as it gets, and you do a lot of it, you could argue that, like he said, what is harder? I think it's subjective. But so I think it matters what you have racing coming up and what the elevation profile looks like. With that said, I do think going up and down for quarters is harder than going up a mile in one shot and down a mile in one shot. Just with what it takes to descend and climb again repeatedly is harder than doing it all in one shot. I think the accumulated time would be quicker in the 1 mile up and 1 mile down than it would be for the quarter mile up, quarter mile down repeated times 4. I bet you'd run faster overall time by doing a mile up, mile down, because the way the damage system changing up of musculature works. What do you think?
I agree. I think the workout is more miserable. It is harder to go up and down repeatedly because you're not pacing super well for an hour. You're pacing super well for 400 meters at a time, or maybe even not super well. You're describing my 2 local ski hills, that's what I have.
That's what I have
I did
too.
2,000 feet the other day, and it was tedious, and it was very tiring. But if you're in Colorado and Manitou, where I used to live, and you just go up the incline and come back down, it's a very different workout. And so the one thing you can't do is get into the suck of your stride never changing for 30 minutes straight. You can't get to that. So I think it's more fitness effective to have a mile to work with. But for mental toughness and for pacing, learning your pacing, very much so the long up and down. You don't get into a flow downhill with 400 meters. You kind of bomb it and then you're trashed at the bottom. And that's why the workout's so bad. So it's way harder, I think, to do the intervals, but doesn't mean better.
Yeah, he used the word harder, so which is harder, he said. So let's move on from that.
What's harder, 200 reps or 2 reps?
There's a lot of
Mentally,
factors.
200 reps sucks.
Listen, we built our careers up and down ski hills. My closest one's 140 feet up and down, and I've done it 27 to 30 times in a row, training for mountain races. Like, you tell me what that does to my brain when I get out into the real mountains and get to run endlessly up for an hour before having to turn and come back down. Like, I don't know, powerful. Okay, Adam Beach. DECA questions for the Q&A, 2 of them. So we don't have a theme yet, Brakken. What's the best DECA fit shoe out there right now? And 2, how important is compromise training in DECA fit as opposed to OCR? How frequently would you recommend compromise sessions versus regular quality running sessions? Both very good questions. So talk about shoes. Go ahead. Floor is yours.
We're starting with shoes. I was going to defer that to try to wrap up with that, to try to stay less time talking about it. But I will say that I think shoes matter less in DECA than they do in Hyrox. For the same reason that I think the hill reps are different when you go shorter than longer, is you're not doing any one thing for long enough. The benefits of the super shoe in DECA are reduced because you're doing it for a minute 15 to a minute 45 at a time. You're just not reaping the huge benefits of it, and you need more lateral stability for things like box step overs. And the sleds don't require as much grip as they require traction. And that sounds different. I mean, that sounds the same, but it's different. Traction, think of a court shoe, basketball, volleyball, indoor soccer. You want rubber touching the ground and a pattern that has ridges in it so that dust that sits on top gets dispersed and there's always something touching the ground. You want surface area.
You don't want lugs.
Grip needs something digging in. So yeah, think lugs for grip, think flat and textured for traction. DECA requires more traction, which you're not going to find in a lot of super shoes. Hyrox requires more grip, which you're not going to find in a lot of super shoes, but some have them. So I think the best shoe for it is whatever shoe you feel like you can run fast in for quarter mile repeats and has some amount of traction on it. For me, it's probably still the Endorphin Pro 3, maybe the 4. It's proven to be able to run fast. It's relatively stable, and people have proven that it works on the sleds. I don't think it's the best of any world, but it's probably the best all-around super shoe, but I do not believe you need a super shoe for DECA.
Okay. Well, you're the expert. I'm passionate about shoes, and I'm becoming more so, but I still think you've got me. I would think the Vaporfly, especially the 2s and the 3s, the way that bottom's conformed. It's meant to run on clean terrain, but it's got just enough of, I don't know, the word pilling isn't right, but like little bumpy, groovy thingies. That's, I think, the technical term. That'll grab.
Vaporfly 3 would work well.
Would be very good. And I agree with you about the Endorphin Pro. The 3, I don't have the 4, but I think that shoe would work. But I agree with you. I think the shoe you feel fastest with on the roads might still be the best shoe, as long as there's not a huge amount of dust, like an over dusting of the cement floor surface, which might change the topic a little bit. I think your favorite road shoe, or track shoe.
If I'm trying to think of the podium from the last few DECA Fit World Championships, Rich Ryan won it in the Hyperion tempos. Not a super shoe, but very good traction and grip incidentally. And Rylan set a very fast time in the On Cloud Boom 2s, maybe. And Kent has had success in the Takumi or the Takumi before it went rotted. Once the new ones are too slick on the bottom, it doesn't work. And he's done the Saucony Sinister, which has the same bottom as the Endorphin Pro 3, which is, I believe, what Rylan was wearing when he won Worlds this year. So we've seen like 4 different shoes work. And it all comes down to, can you push the sled with them and run fast? That's it.
I think
it's really all you need to worry about.
Safest, you look at heel to toe drop, you look at the flex of the shoe, you look at the friendliest fit overall in general and the general likability. If you're going to buy the shoe across the board, it's been the Endorphin Pro 3. You're going to get more, or the Endorphin Pro line. You're going to get some polarized opinions on some of the others, which is based more on your mechanics. Like if you're a forward leaner versus a tall runner, an overstrider versus a shuffler. But I feel like the Endorphin Pro is just the perfect middle ground of a shoe that, like, no matter how you run, it's most likely going to feel good underfoot for you, no matter your mechanics. It's just, it doesn't push back too much. It doesn't push forward too much. It's just soft enough, yet it's just firm enough for just a slight propulsion. I think it's like the safest bet, and it's a great shoe.
I think it's the least offensive shoe of the super shoes. Mm-hmm. It's just not going to rub most people the wrong way. I think that's the one to go to.
And the only caveat with that is there is a super shoe out there for you that's faster than that one for you. I guarantee it. It's not going to be the Endorphin Pro. It's not going to be your fastest shoe. You could find one that maybe is a little faster for you. But this is the next best thing, and it's a safe bet on many terrains or many distances or many feet. So do you want to move to the next one? How important is compromised training in DECA fit as opposed to OCR? How frequently would you recommend clean running sessions versus compromised or hybrid sessions?
I think it is paramount in both. I think that OCR, there are courses where you don't need to be a great compromised runner, but in a sprint, which is what DECA is, 5K, you need to be a very good compromised runner. And DECA, you have to be. There's no way around it. It is an interval workout, and all the intervals are compromised. But in terms of time spent doing it, frequency per week, it's a skill. So if you're new to it, you have to front load it and you have to get good at it. But once you're good at it, you don't have to do a ton of compromised running. But as the event gets closer, you certainly should do some to bone up on it. So I guess I can't give you a frequency. Once a week is enough for most people. Some people are going to have to do it 2 to 3 times a week for a few weeks to get good at it, and then it's maintenance until you sharpen.
Not to tangent, but to tangent. Do you think compromised running, and by compromised running, folks, I know we explained this a few weeks ago for you new listeners, but it means like you're going to do something to fatigue yourself and then run, like box step overs or rowing into a run, right? Do you think it's more important to compromised run train for Hyrox or for DECA fit? Which one is more important? Like if you couldn't, you only...
That is a really good question.
Uh-huh. You had to race
Hyrox.
one of them. It's more important for Hyrox, did you say?
I'm going to, yeah. Just because Hyrox will destroy your legs, where DECA will set your cardiovascular system on fire. And so I think you need to, like, you can tough through DECA or you can pace it better. You can't pace a sled in Hyrox. Right. You just have to get off the lunges and the sleds with your legs like boat anchors and know how to work through that. So even though I don't like leaving DECA out, I have to go with Hyrox.
Well, I'll just argue the opposite then. And I don't think there's a right answer. I think it depends on who you are as an athlete. But I think compromised running becomes less and less important as the event gets longer. And it comes down to engine and body work. And you could do your strength in a vacuum for either of these and then pair it with good run work, right? You could lunge your face off and sled push your legs to oblivion in training apart from running, and then hopefully comes together on race day. But I think, like when we were running the U.S. National Series and we had a sprint, I was doing 2 OCR-specific workouts a week, even if it was carry to running and then like overhead work to running. Before the Spartan Race World Champs Beast races, I didn't do one compromised running session. I made sure my grip was good, and I made sure I was ready to run for 3 hours hard in the mountains. And I kept it separate, and that was the right formula for a long race. Now, Hyrox isn't that. It's shorter and way more intense. But point being, my philosophy, I did that in my own training.
Yeah.
Short events, you have to do it. Longer events, we can start to have a conversation. But not for Hyrox. No way. You got to do it. But
I think that's fair.
yeah.
Now, I'm going to preface this by saying we are the compromised running people, right? We didn't invent compromised running, but you came up with the term, which replaced the terrible term I was using. Like we started this concept in OCR and hybrid of having compromised running. We didn't come up with the workout. Well, some of the workouts.
You did.
Like it existed going back to triathlon and other things, but like this is our thing. We are passionate about this. So just know that before I say this.
Okay.
Compromised running is the most overrated and underrated simultaneously component of OCR and hybrid that I've ever heard of. It used to be strength work. Early in OCR, strength work was the most overrated piece. Now it's compromised running. And I'm going to clarify that. But before I clarify it, what's your reaction to that?
Could not agree more. But I mean, I can elaborate,
Okay.
but if you just want to get on your rock, then do it.
I'll be quick about it.
Okay.
I think that compromised running is misapplied often. I think it's far too intense for most people way too frequently. I think the type of compromised running where you trash yourself with high intensity and then run with high intensity does not need to be done very often. I think that working on that does not improve your running as much as it feels like it has to be improving your running by how miserable it is. I think that is overprescribed for a vast majority of people. I think the type of compromised running where you deplete yourself a little bit and then run moderately fast for longer durations is underutilized by people, even into the mountain trail and ultra crowd. I think it's one of the most powerful forms of training out there. But the super high intensity CrossFit or Metcon or OCR suck style where I blow myself out and then I hammer, I find very little use for that other than prepping for the feeling of a race sporadically or right at the end. That's my take on it.
Hot take. Yeah, it's baffling to me how many people sit in like OCR compromised or hybrid compromised blocks year round. Like every week is a compromised Metcon because that's what the race requires. And what happens is if all you do is that, you never get your strongest and you never get your fastest. You sit there at 80% of your capability,
Right.
and you snub your ability to grow because you're never doing things at their best and at their cleanest. And so piggybacking what you say, it's more of a time and a place question and answer than it is anything. You have 3 months till you're DECA Fit World Champs. Maybe you do spend time in threshold and in pure strength blocks for 6 weeks, and then 6 weeks out, maybe you start layering in the compromised or the hybrid stimulus on top of the foundations of both ends right before. Nothing you don't know already, but just like I think people want to, I got to race in 6 months. I got to start doing what the race requires today. And the answer is like, let's break down what the race requires, do them in a vacuum, and then bring them together only when the time is right. Because you'll see really good returns when you bring it together,
Yes.
and then they'll stop really quick too. That's my findings over the years. What about yours?
Yeah. I agree with that. I think that if I did all my work, all my quality work, threshold and gray zone, compromised, I would be almost as good at those zones, whether I did them clean or compromised. Like if I did, let's say, marathon paced work, if I did that compromised or clean, I think I could build out that individual metric almost as good compromised as I could clean. But if I went like 10K or faster, I could not build my faster than threshold running to the heights that I could build it if I was compromised each time. You just wouldn't hit the pace, or you wouldn't hit the form, or it'd be way too costly exertion-wise. Yeah. So the faster the running is, I think the more important it is to keep it clean as long as possible into the training block and then bring that in at the end. But the slower quality work, the gray zone, the like aerobic threshold or just below lactate threshold, I think that kind of stuff you can do relatively frequently. as long as you're not trashing yourself before it. Like a little bit compromised going into all of those things is really powerful.
Yeah, and that's where...
But I don't think people need to do it as much as they try to.
And that's where people hate their lives. They hate their lives in their training in relation to their lives because they look at, okay, I'm going to DECA sim. Really, it's just 500-meter intervals, so they run way too hard for their interval sessions and get to the station work, and pretty soon they're hanging on for dear life and can't understand why they're dying. I'm like, no, you're running a 5K plus extra duration. Now this is a 30-minute race, and you think this compromise session is just 400-meter repeats with breaks. No, those breaks are even worse. Those breaks at the stations, and so people are far too quick and intense a lot of times on these sessions. They're thinking it's much shorter than it is, and so they run too fast of a pace early, and then they blow up and they hate their lives. That's what happens. Just outline that would happen to me when I first started all this. It'd be like, oh, OCR 200s, what a joke. Oh, well, OCR 200s was 1,000 meters of running and then an additional 90 seconds of station work, and pretty soon that's a 4.5-minute interval. I'm not going to go run 35s. That's dumb, but I did at first,
right?
Until I couldn't. So that's just a rant, but that's what happens to a lot of people.
So the original night school course I built out was compromised running. I built the entire course.
Yeah.
And then as we sat on it longer and longer, the threshold training felt like the more pressing need to talk about. But our next course is either a part 2 of threshold, or for people who didn't get to do it, or it's going to be that compromised running course. And we will get deep into that for people who are interested. But it's something we've spent so many hours over so many years thinking about, practicing, trying to invent new workouts, trying to perfect. And it's fun to talk about, but it's very misapplied by a lot of people.
Yeah, there's a lot of wormholes to go down with it. Even for the pure runners. Truthfully, like you said, like a mountain ultra runner who has no reason to run compromised may benefit from it at certain times, and it's just interesting.
Yeah,
don't let us do.
I got a message last week from someone that I coach.
Yeah,
go ahead, finish that up.
I'll say don't let us go down that rabbit hole today, but apparently you're gonna. So go ahead.
Just briefly, I got a message from an ultra athlete I coach last week. He said, "Hey, what's the deal with this workout? This seems very OCR specific." And he doesn't do obstacle course racing at all. I said, "You're right. It is. But it's one of these workouts that I found has this crazy translation to ultra running. It is not a workout that I would have built for ultra running, but it just happened to be good for ultra running. And so I'd like you to try this workout." It's just like the byproduct is it happens to work on the same areas that give out in ultras. We don't care about the transition component of OCR or the skill component, but what it does for durability and ability to run on really fatigued hips and lower back and things like that, it's just very ultra specific, despite not being an ultra workout. And so just another, kudos to you. You're right. A lot of OCR work is really good for ultra work or mountain work.
When I started something, now I got to add to that. Stupid. What's the difference between back-to-back long runs? Okay. What's the difference between back-to-back long runs to accumulate fatigue, or an hour in the gym, back squatting, lunging, and step-upping, and then going out for a 3-hour long run after that? You tell me. Could they both be equally as effective?
Impact.
Okay.
The only difference is impact.
But the fatigue the legs feel for that 3-hour long run after you spent an hour in the gym, like what actually would be better juice for your squeeze? Of course, we're leaving aerobic work out of it, but structurally, I don't know. That's a dumbed down version of compromised running. You want to get durable? Go ahead and smash your legs and then force yourself to run 3 hours in the mountains an hour later. Or you could do back-to-back long runs and maybe
safer.
And you could maybe end up in the same place on race day. It's just this is what we're talking about, like things like that. Like that would be a version of compromised running for the long run. Like starting out and your legs are already screwed. Like that's powerful stuff potentially, depending on the mission for the day. Should we cut ourselves off there?
Well, last week.
Nope.
Nope. We're going full steam ahead.
Oh, God.
That workout I referenced last week.
10
cal on the rower, 10 weighted walking lunges. 20-20, 30-30, 40-40, 50-50, 60-60, 70-70. That was the workout. 45 minutes of work.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went and did 60 minutes of a hilly loop. Those 60 minutes started 45 minutes into a hilly loop, essentially.
Yeah.
I did 45 minutes of weighted lunging and rowing. Cardiovascular component, check. Quads trashed, check. Lower back and core already compromised, check. Now start running your hills. Muscularly, I'm already an hour into the race when I'm starting that race prep workout. And that's what we're talking about here, how that's not an ultra workout you would write for an ultra runner. But if you wrote it for a runner who then did an ultra, they would be better at the ultra for having done that workout.
Mm-hmm.
So now, how do we take those components and make them into an ultra specific plan? Like, yeah, you could just do that one. And it was something like that. It wasn't that, but something I gave to someone. It actually had heavy carries in it for someone who's training purely for an ultra, because it's really, 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 really hard to complete a heavy carry without your legs trashed if you go up an incline at all. So anyways, point is, that's an example of an ultra workout that has low volume running.
I've just decided I discovered ultra compromise running, I think, and I didn't know it when I did. I'm gonna tell you a little story.
Okay.
We're on question 2. We're gonna get nowhere today. This is just gonna be one of those, folks.
I hope people are on a long run.
I hope
not
so.
An interval workout.
And I'm making sure this episode needs to be done in like an hour 45 for me today. So, anyways, between my freshman and sophomore years of high school, I needed to make some money. My Uncle Leon, is a farmer. My dad is one of 10 kids, and they have a farming background. He grew up in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Uncle Leon needed a farmhand, and so I went and lived at Uncle Leon's house for 2 weeks while I was getting ready for cross-country season in July and August. I was baling and mounding hay. I was picking stones. I helped him put a roof on his barn and his pole shed, and I lived there. And Uncle Leon starts at the crack of dawn, so running in the morning wasn't an option. It's the middle of nowhere. I didn't have a headlamp. It was like 1997 or 8. None of that existed. So after working more than I ever have in my life, outside in the sun all day, exhausted, I had to go get my stupid run in. And then it was work to dinner. And then after dinner, it was like your little window, and I'd have to go run with a full belly outside. I remember being so exhausted and still like, I got to do it. I got to run. And anyways, that summer, and maybe it's puberty, maybe it's, I don't know, but like the fitness that that sucked at the time. And then as we got into cross-country season, which was only a few weeks later, and yes, I had a tough couple of weeks at Uncle Leon's farm, I didn't run a single run. I mean, I was hucking around 70-pound bales of hay, across the barn, up the all over the place, and then running. I came out firing. I had the best opening races out of even my junior, senior year. I opened better my sophomore year. Granted, I was healthy then. And I think it was because of Uncle Leon on the farm and working my hands to the bone all day and then still having to run afterwards. And it did something to me that I couldn't do on my own those other summers before the fall came. Compromise running. $5 an hour. That's what I got. Cash. $5. $5 an hour. That's what I got paid.
Just like that, the episode grinds to a halt. For the second time this week, my internet went out. It's usually Kirk. Every time it's Kirk, until this past 7-day stretch. Ours was out for almost a full day, which is weird because we live in the metro Milwaukee area, and it's not like this rural spot where internet's difficult to even get there. And so I'm not entirely sure what's happening lately. We didn't have storms, but we were cut out. We missed our window. So I am going to wrap up here to get us over the hour mark. We had a question. It's a follow-up on an episode we did last week about how to maintain fitness when you're racing multiple times. And this one is a specific question. They're doing a race that is a 1 mile run and a 1K swim plus a 5K run, like 5 out of 6 weeks. How do you maintain fitness during that? And I think this is one of the most difficult styles of racing and training to wrap your mind around. This is something where you're going to race essentially every weekend for a month and a half. And this is what high school and college track is. So this is something that Kirk and I have experience in. But what you end up doing is working on engine and skill, and they don't necessarily have to be compatible. So the standard thing in high school is that nothing really changes. You race Saturday, you have a quality session Tuesday, you have a quality session Thursday, and you race Saturday again. And one of your sessions is going to be longer intervals, one of them is going to be shorter intervals, and you just keep going through it. But what we found out in high school is that, and to an extent in college, is that you can't keep that level of intensity going for very long. You kind of race yourself into shape, but you also end up hurting yourself because not necessarily hurting, but like hurting your fitness because you just start to burn out. It's too many intense efforts all in a row. So in college, they modulated a little better. At some programs, they modulated very well. But it still came down to we were still doing 2 quality workouts during the week. And I think that for an adult, that's too much. I think you still get 1 engine building day, and I think you get 1 skill day. So here's how I recommend doing this. If you are racing a 5K every single weekend for 5 out of 6 weekends, something intense like that, you balance it out by you have an engine day that does longer work. For me, I'm thinking you stay closer to threshold. 1 hour, 40-minute to a 60-minute race pace. You do a session in there. But instead of, like, for me, I do 30 to 40 minutes of total work. So 10 to 12 by 3 minutes. That's one of the standard ones that I do. I'd stick closer to 8 to 10 during this stretch. Top off your anaerobic development, keep it up to par, but don't build up a huge amount of fatigue. And then if you do a second workout, it's skill-based. It's going to be faster than 5K work, and it's going to be accumulating very little total time on feet. So maybe something 10 by 200 at mile pace. Or maybe you do 6 by 400 at mile pace. Or maybe even 8 by 400. Or maybe you do 12 by 400 at 5K pace, but you're taking longer rest. But whatever you're doing is secondary to race day. The race requires all your effort and all your energy. And so your midweek, maybe you only do 1 workout and it's just the threshold work. Finishing with a few fast 200s. That might be the best thing you could do is on Wednesday each week, go run 8 by 3 minutes and then 3 by 200 fast and call it. Your races drive so much fitness benefit that you don't have to do much during the week, but you also don't want to let your aerobic capacity erode or your anaerobic capacity, so you just top it off throughout the week. You're not trying to move your fitness during the week, you're trying to retain it. And Saturdays, your race day, that moves your fitness. So it's a very specific example, but it applies to the greater population, which is, I'm going to race a bunch in a row. What do I need to work on? Well, you need to maintain the skills your race isn't touching. 5K is not touching a whole lot of endurance. Maintain that during the week. Don't do too much of it, but maintain it. It's also not touching high-end speed. Dabble in it during the week, but make sure that your biggest effort is saved for race day. And that's it. We're going to wrap up here. Short and sweet, 1 hour episode. Not quite your long run, but it's what we have this week. Hopefully the city of Milwaukee has their internet figured out moving forward. And we don't have this. We've gone 4 years without my internet giving out. Twice in a week now. Until next time, folks.